I'm not afraid of the end. I'm afraid you won't wait.
I'm Landon Hart, 33, a U.S. Army officer. What I want to share with you is the story of everything that slipped through my fingers, the battle to reclaim what I could, and the path I took to rebuild myself after everything around me fell apart. It all traces back to the house I grew up in, a pristine, two-story red brick nestled in Texas, where the sweltering August air would slip through my window at night. It wasn't extravagant or oversized, but every detail was so meticulously cared for, it looked like it belonged in a magazine spread. The polished wood floors gleamed underfoot, always carrying the faint scent of cleaning solution mixed with the aroma of my mom's morning coffee. It wasn't about wealth, it was about care, stability, and a quiet sense of pride. I've never had riches. No sprawling mansion, no luxury cars. What I do have is grit, a resolve shaped by trials, and a rifle that's traveled every harsh mile with me. That tool has weathered searing heat, bone-deep cold, and all the doubt and fear I've shouldered along the way. It's more than just equipment. It's been a quiet companion through every battle I've made it through. My parents, Frank and Ellen, were proud Texans with deep blue-collar roots. They never had to scrape by, but they weren't ones to flaunt what they had. Everything they did carried a quiet dignity, especially when it came to their sons. My father, a former banker, always looked like he belonged on a stage. His shirts were crisp as folded paper, and he wore his blazers like formal armor, even for something as simple as a grocery run. My mother noticed everything. Misplace a fork at the dinner table, and she'd shoot a look that said more than any words could. Presentation mattered deeply to her. How we were seen in public was everything. She used to say, "Reputation is like fine china. Once it's chipped, it's never the same again." There was no lack of love, and I've never doubted that. But their love came tethered to conditions, expectations so heavy they felt like chains pulling me toward a version of myself I never chose. As the eldest, I was meant to be the shining example, the polished success, the one with degrees and elegant frames, hanging neatly behind a desk in some spotless high-rise office. But I chose a different path. Right after finishing college, at 22, I signed up for the Army. It wasn't impulsive. I thought it through. I felt drawn to it. But deep down, I knew it would never sit right with them. My dad didn't need words to express his disappointment. His eyes told the story. My mom? She had this habit of sighing when my name came up. Once, she told a neighbor, not realizing I was close by. He was such a bright kid. Could have done anything. And yet, it was the military where I discovered myself. In the dust, under pressure, I learned what I was made of. I stood tall in moments where fear could have broken me. I looked out for those who couldn't protect themselves. That gave me purpose. I've never second-guessed that choice. Then there's Bryce, my younger brother. He's 28 now and exactly the person my parents always dreamed of. Studied law, never left town, always polite, always polished. He still leans on their help and they're proud to offer it. Just hearing his name brings a glow to their faces. He's got the charm that turns heads when he walks in a room. His hair's never out of place. He speaks in a way that draws people in, makes them nod, makes them smile. Bryce is the prototype of what my parents envisioned for me. I'm not bitter about that. Truthfully, I'm not. We're just cut from different cloth. But I do wonder sometimes if he's ever been tested, if he's ever had to dig deep when everything felt like it was collapsing, or if life's just always opened doors for him, smooth and easy, leaving no scars behind. And then there's Raina. Even thinking of her name makes my chest tighten. Raina is 30, a nurse working in the city hospital. We met in college at a party I had no interest in attending. I was already thinking up reasons to leave early when I spotted her. She was tucked into a corner, wearing a soft green dress, dark hair swept into a bun, holding a glass of water instead of the usual red cup. She smiled, just barely, but when our eyes locked, the whole room faded away. I nervously walked over and said something like, "Not a fan of the punch, either?" She giggled. "It smells like bad choices and instant regret." I smirked. "So, you're just here for the vibes?" She tilted her head, looking at me with curious eyes. Maybe I was just waiting for someone to ask a decent question. That was the spark. That one moment sealed something in me. I just knew. She was different. Raina isn't like anyone else I've known. She's gentle, but not fragile. Her strength is quiet, grounded. She can get me to laugh when I'm in a mood no one else would touch. And I can be a pain. Believe me. But more than anything, she really hears me. Not the fake kind of listening people do when they're waiting for their turn to talk. She actually takes in every word like it matters. We've been together 6 years now. We've gone through some tough seasons. When she got laid off unexpectedly, when I got banged up during a training session and ended up in a hospital bed for 2 weeks. She was there, every single day, holding my hand like it was the only thing keeping me tethered. She never let a single tear fall, at least not when I was watching. Instead, she leaned in close and whispered over and over, "You'll be all right. I'm here." Even though I could see the fear flicker in her eyes, she refused to show it. She stayed strong for me. Just 2 weeks earlier, I was down on one knee in the front yard beneath the glowing Texas moon. In the background, cicadas hummed somewhere out of sight. I didn't have a fancy ring or a grand gesture, just a modest silver band I'd saved up for and a heart pounding like it did in combat. She looked at me, tears shining in her eyes, but she didn't answer with a yes. Instead, she wrapped her arms around me, held me tightly, and murmured, "Landon, I need time, but I'll be waiting." I nodded, though my chest felt like it was splintering. I knew what was coming. 18 months away, another deployment, miles between us, and no guarantees. Relationships don't always survive that kind of distance, but I believe in her. I have to. Right now, as I write this, I'm finishing my packing. My rucksack leans in the corner, next to my boots still covered in dust from our last drill. I've checked and rechecked everything. My gear, my uniform, my knife, and a small spiral notebook. Nothing fancy, just a cheap notepad I plan to fill with letters to Raina. I've never been the best with words, but I want her to feel how much I think of her every single day. Maybe those notes, small pieces of me, will be the thread that keeps our bond intact through silence, distance, and loneliness. Last night, the final night before my departure, I sat alone out on the porch. Moonlight filtered in through the open curtains, casting a soft glow across the floor. A warm breeze moved lazily through the air, bringing with it the earthy scent of nearby wildflowers and the remnants of the Texas heat. My thoughts drifted, to my parents, to Bryce, to Raina. I thought about everything I was leaving and all that lay ahead. War is never simple. I've watched fellow soldiers collapse, seen the light in their eyes fade while we scream for help that didn't come fast enough. I've heard explosions split the air at midnight, so loud it felt like the heavens were tearing apart. But this time it wasn't dying that scared me. I made peace with that long ago. This time it was the idea of losing everything that truly matters to me. This morning I stood at the mirror straightening the pleats in my uniform just like Dad taught me. I looked every inch the soldier, disciplined, prepared. But deep down, something felt fragile. My backpack was slung over my shoulder, full and ready. As I opened the door to leave, my parents were waiting there. My mom stepped forward first, arms flung around me. Her body shook against mine. "Please be careful," she whispered, her voice breaking. Her tears soaked through my collar. I held her tightly. "I'll be fine, Mom. I swear." Then came my father. No hug. He's never been the affectionate kind. But he placed his hand firmly on my shoulder, giving it a strong squeeze. His face was unreadable. "Do your job," he said flatly, "and come back whole." Bryce stood behind them, his hands buried in his pockets. He gave a half smile, awkward and unsure. "Take care of yourself, man," he said quietly. Try to eat something decent." I nodded. "Will do." Later at the airport, Raina came to say goodbye. She wore that soft green dress I loved, the same one from the night we first met. Her dark hair was down, dancing in the wind every time someone walked by. We didn't say much. There was no need. We just stood together, our fingers laced tightly, memorizing each other's faces. "Promise you'll write?" she asked softly, her voice uneven. "I will," I said, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. Then I asked, "Will you wait for me?" She nodded, but her eyes said more than her words. Like something unspoken sat heavy inside her. I wanted to ask what it was. I should have. But before I could, the intercom crackled to life, announcing my flight. We kissed, fast but deep, and I turned away. I looked back once. She hadn't moved. She stood there, her small frame barely noticeable in the shifting crowd. She didn't wave. She didn't cry. She just watched as I disappeared into the terminal. Once on the plane, I stared out the window, watching Texas disappear beneath clouds. The land faded away, patchwork fields swallowed by white. I reached into my bag, pulled out the notebook, and turned to the first blank page. "Raina, today is the first day I'm away from you. I don't know what's waiting for me out there, but I know this. I love you. Please wait." I folded the note slowly, picturing her holding it, smoothing out its creases. I imagined her smiling, soft and true. That image gave me strength I didn't even realize I needed. But back home, where I thought things were safe, something had already started, planted and nurtured by those I trusted most. I was sent to a base surrounded by endless desert, where the sun pressed down like a furnace. The heat wasn't just intense, it felt alive, clinging to my skin. Sand seeped into everything, my boots, my gear, even my teeth. It became part of daily life, the roar of engines, the sharp bark of distant conflict, the lingering bite of smoke and sweat. All of it was normal. My days were spent guarding convoys, leading patrols, sometimes staring the enemy in the face. But the harder fight was inside me. The constant worry, the fear of what might be happening back home, the ache of separation. There's one night I'll never forget. An artillery shell landed close, less than a mile from camp. The ground bucked like it had a heartbeat. Sirens screamed. We hit the dirt and stayed there, barely breathing. We didn't know if more were coming. The silence that followed felt endless, just the wind and the echo of the blast. My fingers fumbled in my pocket. I pulled out Raina's photo and pressed it to my chest. "Please wait," I whispered. "Just wait for me." In the midst of war, writing to her became my way of holding on to something real. Every letter I scrawled felt like a lifeline, an invisible thread pulling me back from the chaos. Late at night, under the dim glow of a flickering oil lamp in our tent, I'd flip open that worn notebook and pour my heart onto the page. Not always about the danger, not every time, but about the quiet, brutal beauty in between. About those long patrols beneath a sun so hot it turned the ground into a brittle sheet of glass. About the sudden furious sandstorms that swallowed us whole, turning the world into a blur of grit and wind. And about Tommy Young, who used to sing country songs off-key just to make us smile, because sometimes a bad voice and a good heart are all that keep you sane. "Raina," I wrote once, "the sunset tonight lit the desert like it was burning. I wish you'd seen it with me." Every word I wrote felt like a fragile tether back to her, to home, to Texas. I mailed those letters through military channels, hoping against hope they'd reach her hands. Phone calls were rare, nearly impossible. Static-choked signals, scarce time, and sheer exhaustion made them a luxury. But I trusted that my words would carry the feeling, that somehow, across the silence and sand, they'd speak for me. There were nights I'd lie awake on my cot, eyes on the canvas overhead, wind pushing against the walls. I'd picture her, her grin, the way she pulled her hair into a bun while focused on work, how tight she hugged me at the airport that day, like she didn't want to let go. Is she thinking about me? I'd wonder. Is she standing in the yard under that old oak tree looking up at the same moon? Even when my hands shook from fatigue, when my mind was foggy and my stomach empty, I'd write anyway. "Raina, I'm here. I miss you." That's all I had the strength to say sometimes. I've never been poetic, but I was honest. Every letter was my truth, straight from the gut. They were fragments of my soul I hoped she'd read and feel just how much I still belonged to her. Time dragged. I existed in two different lives, one filled with heat, danger, and endless duty, and the other written in ink. The second one was where I could still dream, where I pictured myself returning, dropping to one knee again and hearing her say yes. But she never replied. Still, I never doubted her. I convinced myself delays were normal, that maybe she couldn't find the words, that the letters were lost somewhere between war zones and mailrooms. I trusted her the same way I trusted the men beside me, to have my back when everything went sideways. Then came the day I finally came home. After 18 months that left deep grooves in my bones, I stepped off the plane at Dallas-Fort Worth. The air smelled like fresh rain, not the harsh, iron scent of desert storms, but real rain. My military pack hung heavily from my shoulders, stuffed with more than equipment, crammed with memories and weariness. But in my pocket was something far more important, the small silver ring I had carried through every assignment, every sleepless night, every whispered hope. I had saved it for her, for Raina, ready to ask her again, now that I'd made it back. I came home carrying the weight of survival, weight others didn't get the chance to carry. Tommy, the one with the bad singing voice and the kindest smile, had been ended just 3 months before my return. He died in a surprise attack. I'd stood in front of his casket, the flag draped perfectly over it, numb to the core. And I made a promise. "I'll make this life count, Tommy, for you, for all the guys who didn't come home." So when I landed, it wasn't just about being back. It was about purpose. I had survived, and that had to matter. I flagged a cab at the airport, watching familiar streets slide past the window. Texas hadn't changed. The same houses, same sidewalks, same sunburnt lawns. But I had. My hands were rougher. My muscles knew the strain of carrying more than just gear. My heart, it only wanted to rest, to feel like it was safe again. I imagined Raina 100 ways, rushing out the front door, crying and laughing all at once, that green dress fluttering as she threw her arms around me. I thought of my parents. Maybe Bryce would crack a joke. I didn't need a banner or a crowd, just a quiet meal, familiar voices, a sense of peace. I told them not to come to the airport. I wanted to walk in the door like I belonged, like I'd never left. But as soon as I stepped into the house, something felt off. It wasn't what I saw. It was what I didn't feel. The air was still. Too still. The kind of silence that clings to you, tight and wrong. There was no Raina waiting at the door, no warm smiles. Just my parents, stiff on the couch, not saying a word, curtains drawn, TV off, the whole room lit by one pale yellow bulb. My mother rose slowly, arms wrapping around me like it was rehearsed. Her touch didn't carry any warmth. Her hand landed on my back for a moment, then dropped away. "You're home," she said quietly. Her voice sounded dry, unused. My father didn't get up. He sat there, sharp suit as always, face unreadable. Just one nod. Confused, I looked around. Maybe Raina was upstairs. Maybe this was all just a weird welcome home surprise. "Where's Raina?" I asked, already stepping toward the hallway. "She knows I'm back, right?" My mother sighed and motioned toward the armchair. "Sit down, Landon," she said softly. "There's something we need to explain." My pulse spiked. I lowered myself onto the chair, but every part of me was alert. My fists clenched unconsciously. "It's about Raina," she said, locking eyes with me. She and Bryce are married now. They've moved to Austin. I didn't get it at first. The words felt wrong. "Married," I repeated, as if saying it aloud might help me understand. "To Bryce?" My voice cracked. "My brother?" My father finally spoke, his tone cold and measured, like he was explaining something mechanical. "You chose this path," he said. "You left. You joined the army. Did you honestly think a woman like Raina would wait forever?" My throat tightened. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. "She said she would," I snapped. "I wrote to her constantly. I never gave up. I clung to her memory every single day while people died around me. And Bryce, he knew how much she meant to me." I stood motionless, fists clenched so tightly that my nails carved half-moons into my skin. Fury, shock, pain. All of it slammed into me at once, like a detonation right beneath my ribs. When I looked at my mother, her face wasn't sad. It was blank, almost impatient. That somehow hurt more than everything she'd said. Her voice came clipped, hollow. "You were gone, Landon. Life didn't freeze." Her words echoed in the space between us, and when our eyes met, I realized something chilling. She wasn't on my side. "Don't be ridiculous," she added, her tone sharp enough to cut. "You signed up. You left for combat. You left her. You left all of us. Are you seriously trying to blame anyone but yourself?" It felt like a piece of me snapped in two. "If you'd stayed," she continued, her voice steady but frigid, "this wouldn't have happened. Raina found someone who didn't disappear. You need to face that." It felt like being stabbed. "Ridiculous?" I repeated, my voice cracking. "I risked my life defending this country and protecting this family. What did Bryce do? Wait around and steal what wasn't his?" My father shot to his feet then, his voice booming. "Stop right there. You don't get to lay this on your brother. Bryce was here. He stepped up when you couldn't. He was there for her. You were off in another world. Don't act like you didn't make that choice." The word hit me again, left hanging in the air, stepped up. I swayed slightly, struggling to process what I was hearing. These were my people, my family, the ones I had carried in my thoughts every night in the desert. And now, they were strangers with cold eyes and colder words. I didn't yell. I didn't shed a tear. I just stood in place, lungs tight, trying to keep from drowning in the silence. "Where is she?" I finally asked, my voice barely audible. "I want to hear it from Raina." My mother shook her head like I was being unreasonable. "She's gone, Landon. They moved. She doesn't want to see you. You have to let it go." "Let it go." Without answering, I turned and walked out. The sound of the front door shutting behind me felt like a final judgment. The silver ring in my pocket, once a promise, felt heavier with each step, as though it had turned to lead. I had made it through war, through enemy fire, through 18 months of fear and sacrifice. But nothing prepared me for the blow I just took inside my own home. Outside, the sun was blazing in the Texas sky, but I felt frozen to the bone. Raina, my future, my heart, was now married to Bryce, and my parents, the ones I'd bled for in my own way, had closed the door on me without flinching. But something was off. I could feel it. I'd written. I'd kept my word. I stayed loyal. There was no break in my side of the bond. So why had she walked away? I kept moving, wandering through neighborhoods that had once felt familiar. I passed the open field where Raina and I used to wander on lazy afternoons. I passed the old oak tree, the one where I knelt down and offered her forever with that same ring now pressing into my pocket like a wound. As night fell, I ended up outside a worn-out roadside motel. A flickering neon sign buzzed above the door like it wasn't sure it wanted to stay lit. I took a room, cheap, musty, dimly lit. I lay on the stiff mattress staring at the ceiling, the walls closing in with every thought. Thoughts of Raina, of Bryce, of my parents, and of all the letters that never reached her. Nothing made sense. Raina wouldn't have just walked away, not without a word. Not the woman I knew. When the sun rose, my eyes ached from lack of sleep. But my thoughts had finally sharpened. I needed the truth, and I knew who might have it. Dina, Raina's best friend, practically her sister. They'd shared everything since college. If anyone had answers, it was her. I scrolled through an old contact list in my phone until I found her number. My hand trembled as I pressed call. The line rang once, twice. Then I heard her voice, hesitant, unsure, but familiar. Landon, is that really you? I'm back, I said hoarsely. Dina, I need to know what happened with Raina. There was a pause. I could hear the tension in her silence before she finally answered. Meet me at the coffee shop on Main Street. 11 sharp. Nothing more. The place hadn't changed. Same cracked blue door, same wide glass windows. Raina and I used to go there on slow Saturdays, talking over coffee, laughing about nothing. It had felt safe, constant, real. As I pushed open the door, the smell of brewed coffee hit me like a memory. My boots were still worn and stiff from deployment, scuffing against the tile. I spotted her right away. Dina sat near the window, blonde hair pinned up, a few loose strands framing her tired face. Her eyes met mine, blue, weary, and full of something she couldn't hide. Guilt. She wore a plain white blouse like she'd come straight from work. As I approached, her face shifted, sadness, regret, and maybe even shame flickering all at once. I sat across from her without a word. My family told me Raina married Bryce, I said. They say she wants nothing to do with me. I leaned closer, eyes searching hers. What really happened? She held her coffee mug between both hands like she needed something solid to hold. Her expression turned serious. Landon, I've been waiting for this moment. You deserve the whole story, but it's more complicated than you know. I stayed quiet, heart thudding, giving her space to speak. She exhaled slowly and began, her words dragging like they were pulled from old scars. Raina didn't give up on you, she said. She waited, for months. She checked the mail constantly, hoping for your handwriting. She called me in tears, wondering if you'd moved on or if something had happened to you. I tensed, fingers curling around the table edge. But I wrote, I said. I wrote to her nonstop. I never stopped believing she'd be there. I believe you, Dina replied. But she never got those letters. The words hit like a punch to the chest. She visited your house all the time, Dina continued. She'd ask your parents for updates, for anything. But every time your mom, she'd tell Raina things. I narrowed my eyes. What kind of things? Dina hesitated, voice lower now. That you were never coming home, that you'd stay deployed forever, that she was wasting her life hoping. Ellen made her feel like you'd forgotten her. I leaned back, stunned. My jaw clenched so hard it ached. My mother told her that? She said Raina deserved someone who wouldn't vanish. I stared down at my fists, breath shallow. And Bryce, I said through my teeth, where does he come in? Dina's mouth tightened. Her eyes hardened. That's the part that hurts the most. He started hanging around, a lot. He brought her coffee at work, took her to dinner, said the right things. Her voice cracked, just a little. He moved in on her when she was at her lowest. I sat still, barely breathing, her words dropping into me like bricks into a deep well. She didn't give in at first, Dina went on. But you know how Raina is. She felt alone, Landon, with nothing from you, no messages, nothing to hold on to. Her voice drifted into silence. She looked down, swallowed hard. She started to break. I closed my eyes, trying to inhale around the tightness wrapping my chest like a fist. You tried to stop it, didn't you? Dina gave a faint nod, her fingers curling tighter around her coffee mug. I begged her not to give up, told her to keep believing, but your mother and Bryce, her voice tightened. They were relentless. They made her feel foolish for hoping, like waiting for you was wasting her life. My jaw clenched. You mean they twisted things? I said, my voice low and sharp. What happened to my letters? Dina scanned the cafe nervously, then leaned in, voice just above a whisper. Raina once saw your mom check the mailbox. She spotted a letter, said she knew it was from you, recognized your handwriting. But when she asked about it, Ellen told her it was a utility bill. A dry, bitter laugh slipped from my throat. Of course she did. At the time, Raina wasn't sure what to believe, Dina said quietly. But she had doubts. She felt like something was off. And then, she trailed off. She didn't need to finish. 9 months after you deployed, she said softly, Bryce asked her to marry him. She said yes, not because she was in love, because she was tired. She felt abandoned, empty. I couldn't form words. The ache inside was slow and devastating, burning through me from the inside out. I felt like I was being hollowed out. Dina's voice broke. I'm sorry, Landon. I really did try to protect her. I swear I did. I gave a faint nod, barely holding myself upright. Thanks for telling me, I murmured. I left the cafe without saying another word. I needed air. I headed straight to the tree, our tree, the old oak where I'd dropped to one knee, where Raina had cried and laughed at the same time, where we'd carved our initials when we were just kids dreaming about forever. It stood exactly as it always had, unmoved, its leaves stirring softly in the late afternoon wind. The scent of sun-baked grass filled the air and pulled memories forward whether I wanted them or not, her smile. The final hug at the airport. The grip of her hand wrapped around mine, like she couldn't let go. But now Dina's words rang louder than any explosion I'd ever heard in combat. Your mom destroyed your letters. Bryce used her heartbreak. Raina thought you had disappeared. I ground my teeth together until my jaw ached. The people I loved, the ones I believed in, had wrecked the very thing I fought so hard to come home to. And Raina, the woman who carried me through battles just by existing in my heart, she was now with my brother. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the ring. The metal was warm from being pressed against my chest all day, but it might as well have been searing hot. I stared at it, letting it rest in my palm, burning like a brand. I didn't go back to my childhood home. I couldn't. That place, the laughter, the family photos, the smell of fresh coffee, none of it meant anything anymore. It was a museum built on lies. Instead, I found a small apartment on the edge of Dallas, the kind of place no one would notice. Flaking paint, stained carpet, a ceiling that looked like it might cave in when it rained. It wasn't home, just shelter. I tossed my military pack in the corner, the same way I'd always done. My boots, crusted with sand and dust, stood beside it like silent reminders of everything I had endured. I wasn't Lieutenant Hart anymore. I wasn't anyone's hero. Not a son, not a fiancé. Just a broken man carrying a story no one believed. For days, I didn't leave the bed. I stared at the ceiling while war and betrayal swirled through my mind in tandem. I saw Tommy in the early hours, just before light, heard his cracked voice singing some old country tune, remembered the way his grin still shone through layers of dirt and exhaustion. Then I'd see him lying still, fading into the sand, as though the desert was swallowing him whole. The sounds came next, booming echoes of war, boots crunching through chaos, the ringing that followed every blast. In the haze of sleep, Raina would appear. Her voice would wrap around me. I'll wait for you, she'd whisper. But she hadn't waited. She married Bryce. No, Dina had said. She didn't walk away. She was pushed. But that didn't stop the storm inside. Pain doesn't listen to reason. It screams. It accuses. It burns. I started writing. Not letters to Raina anymore, but thoughts I needed to get out of my head. A journal for the man who came home to nothing. Today I found out what happened, I wrote one night, hands trembling. They betrayed me. My family took everything. I kept my promise to her. I fought. So why wasn't it enough? The words didn't bring peace, but they kept me from falling apart completely. After nearly a week of isolation, I knew I couldn't keep doing it alone. I walked into a plain counseling office near the military base. An old flag hung from the wall, a clock ticked too loud, and the room smelled faintly of old books. That's where I met Dr. Karen. Calm, direct, no nonsense, but kind. She had eyes that saw too much and flinched at nothing. She listened as I poured everything out. The missions, the silence, the letters that never arrived, the woman who slipped through my fingers, the people who let it all happen. When I finished, she leaned forward slightly, her voice quiet but steady. Landon, you've endured both war and betrayal. The emotions you're feeling, grief, fury, numbness, are expected. But you have to face them head on. Her words felt too calm for the hurricane inside me. Then she asked what I'd been avoiding. Who are you angriest at? Your family? Raina? Or is it yourself? I couldn't answer. The obvious response was my mother, Bryce. But deep down, something quieter whispered the unthinkable. What if I'd stayed? What if I hadn't gone? What if I had fought a different war? I had no reply, only the growing ache of silence. Then the dreams began to twist. One night I saw myself standing in the desert again, a letter in hand with Raina's name written across it. A gust of wind ripped it away, shredding it into the storm like everything else I'd lost. Another night I stood frozen in the back of a wedding hall. Bryce stood at the altar, grinning, Raina's hand in his. He turned toward me, smirking. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came. I woke drenched in sweat, chest heaving like I was under fire. Dr. Karen taught me techniques to stay afloat, breathing exercises, journaling the nightmares, breaking them into manageable fragments. Yet, every dawn I still felt crushed, as if I'd marched through combat all over again with 100 pounds strapped to my chest. One bleary evening, I ended up in a dim dive bar not far from the base. It was nearly empty, steeped in shadows, thick with silence. I sat alone, nursing a drink I wasn't really drinking, staring into it like it held answers. That's when Mason slid onto the stool beside me. He looked weathered, late 50s maybe, with streaks of gray in his short hair, a jagged scar riding his cheek from temple to jaw, and eyes that had seen too much. He didn't ask what had brought me there or pretend to make small talk. He ordered a beer, then glanced sideways at me like he already understood everything I couldn't say. "You look like life backed over you twice, Hart," he muttered, voice rough and laced with sardonic humor. I didn't smile, didn't react, just stared at the wall and replied, "You wouldn't understand." But I told him anyway. It wasn't about seeking guidance or building trust. I just needed to let it out before it devoured me from the inside. He didn't say a word, just sat there drinking his beer, nodding occasionally as I talked. And when I finally ran out of breath, he leaned closer, eyes sharp and steady. "Landon," he said slowly, "I've watched men lose it all. Homes, families, even their grip on who they were. You know what keeps a soldier moving forward?" I shook my head. "Nothing does." "No," he said. "Justice does, that's it. You don't go after it for yourself, nobody else will." Those words struck me like a crack of thunder, lighting up a truth buried deep inside. I saw Raina's face in my mind, her laughter, her vows, then the sudden aching silence. I remembered the letters I sent that never reached her, my mother's manipulation, Bryce's calculated charm. While I was deployed, they took everything from me, without warning, without remorse. But I wasn't someone who quit. I'd made it through the worst. Endless nights in hostile territory, explosions tearing up the silence, sand in every crevice of my soul. I could endure this betrayal too. I stepped outside, Mason's words thundering through my skull like boots on a parade ground. "If you don't fight for justice, no one will." The street was washed in the deep orange light of sunset, the clouds glowing with fire, just like the anger building in my chest. This wasn't the end of my story. I walked home not with peace, but with resolve. In my apartment, I opened my laptop for the first time in weeks. It still smelled faintly of sweat and arid winds from deployment. The machine whirred to life, casting a pale blue light on my face. I logged into my old military email, the one I used when handwriting wasn't possible. The inbox was silent. No replies from Raina, just a void. Something nudged me to check the sent folder. My stomach turned. Messages were missing. Entire conversations, gone. Timestamps didn't match my memory. I hadn't deleted them. Someone else had. I wasn't good with tech. I could barely navigate settings. But I knew someone who was. Jared. My hands trembled as I called. He picked up fast. "Hart," he said, voice gritty but familiar. "Long time. I need a favor." "That bad?" "Worse," I said. "Emails from deployment, ones I sent Raina, somebody wiped them." He went quiet, then asked, "You in trouble?" "It's my family, my mom, Bryce. I think they sabotaged everything I tried to send her. I need those emails back. I need proof." "I'll check," he said immediately. "Might take time, but if they weren't permanently wiped from the backup servers, I'll find them." "You're a lifesaver." "You owe me a beer," he replied. "And maybe something stronger." I managed a weak laugh. "You'll get both." While he searched, I flipped open my old notebook and started writing like I was pouring it out. I wrote about Dina's warning, about my mom intercepting mail, Bryce circling Raina like a predator, 9 months of silence that turned into a lifetime of consequences. I drew a crude timeline: my deployment, the letters I mailed, her lack of replies, then Bryce's sudden visits, her proposal, their marriage, 9 months. Every piece fell into place like a cruel puzzle. How had everything shattered so fast? Was Raina truly happy in Austin? Or had she been pushed into something under false pretenses? I couldn't answer that, but I knew I couldn't do this on my own. One of the vets I'd spoken with at the bar gave me a name: Henry Caldwell, family law, downtown Dallas. I set up a meeting. His office was like a time capsule: dusty books lining the walls, carpet that smelled like it had seen decades. He wore old wire-frame glasses that kept slipping down his nose. His expression was unreadable but focused. I told him everything. "My mother and brother interfered," I said, voice tight. "Raina never got my letters. She thought I'd abandoned her." Henry sat silently, absorbing it. Only after I finished did he speak. "You're after accountability," he said, "and the truth." "Yes," I said. "I want them held responsible." He nodded slowly. "If your mail was tampered with, physically or digitally, that's serious. Email access without authorization could be prosecuted under federal law." He jotted notes quickly. "But to move forward, we need hard proof. Letters, emails, metadata, something showing they actively disrupted your communication." He agreed to take my case if I brought him evidence. "Start with your parents' home," he advised, tapping the pad. "If they kept the letters, they might still be there." The thought made my insides twist. That red brick house had once been safe. Now, it felt like enemy ground. But I knew I had to go back. I waited until they'd left for one of their community dinners, events they always attended. I parked a couple blocks away and walked the rest of the way. The neighborhood was quiet. The same wind chimes clinked softly in the breeze. The same hedges guarded the path, but none of it felt like home. At the door, my heart thudded like it used to before missions, palms sweaty, mind racing. I pulled the old key from my wallet and slid it in. The lock clicked. The door creaked open. Once, the house smelled like breakfast and furniture polish. Now it just smelled like secrets. I moved carefully through the house, room by room, not rushing, just methodical. I opened every drawer, dug through closets, checked cabinets. Each photograph I passed stared back like it held a grudge. Family vacations, birthday cakes, graduation caps, Raina smiling beside me. The weight of what they'd done pressed hard on my chest, unrelenting. After 2 painstaking hours, I finally found it. Hidden beneath my parents' bed sat a wooden box, its surface coated in dust, locked. I retrieved a flathead screwdriver from the garage and forced it open. There they were. My letters. Every single one. And hers. Raina's handwriting jumped off the page, those familiar little loops at the end of her letters. Some were smudged with dried tears. One hadn't even been opened. I dropped to the floor, trembling. Pages spilled across my lap. My thoughts, my promises from deployment, all of them had been stolen from her, and every word she'd written back had never reached me. My hands shook as I called Jared. "You were spot on," he said. "I tracked login activity. Your military email was accessed several times from your parents' IP address." He hesitated. "They didn't clean up well. I recovered some cached drafts and time-stamped logins. All of it leads back to them." That was it. The box. The digital evidence. I finally had the truth. Mason had been right. This couldn't be buried. I wasn't the hollow man who had come back from war. I was still Landon Hart. And now, I would make them face what they'd done. But I couldn't go in tools blazing. Screaming accusations wouldn't hold. They'd lie, deflect. I needed something bigger. That's when I thought of Savannah. We went to college together. She was a reporter now, writing for the Dallas Morning News. Smart, relentless, and she owed me one. I called her. My pulse was steady, even if my chest felt tight. Savannah? Landon? It's been forever. I've got something. It's huge. I want it told, but I need to stay anonymous. What kind of something? A soldier, betrayed by his own family during deployment. And I've got the evidence. There was a pause. Then, meet me tomorrow. That cafe near campus. I'll be there. And Savannah? Just call me a veteran. No name. I want the truth out, not the attention. She didn't push back. Understood. The next morning we met. I laid out everything. The letters, the hacked emails, the manipulation. Bryce, Raina, my mother. Savannah didn't interrupt once. Her eyes sparkled like they used to back in school when a scoop landed in her lap. She jotted down notes and asked sharp, direct questions. When I finished, she leaned in. This isn't just about family drama, she said, voice quiet and fierce. It's about betrayal. About what it means when a soldier returns from war to find the battle never ended. I'm not chasing revenge, I told her. Just truth. Let the world see it. Keep my name out of it. She nodded. I'll make sure it's printed. 4 days later, it hit the press. A soldier betrayed by family while serving. The headline blazed across Sunday's front page. Savannah didn't pull punches, and she kept her promise. No names, no hints, just facts. The story outlined how a deployed serviceman wrote letters to his partner only to have them intercepted, how his family twisted the silence into a story that pushed her into marrying his brother. Savannah quoted pieces of those letters, raw, vulnerable things I'd only ever meant for Raina. She ended with a brutal question. Is loyalty to one's country worth the price of betrayal by family? By midday, it was everywhere. Veteran forums reposted it. Local news picked it up. Readers shared and commented in waves. I sat in my small apartment scrolling through replies. Can't believe a family could do that to one of their own. Disgusting. They deserve shame. This broke me. I cried. I lost my own family to war, too. Where can we reach this soldier? He needs support. A message came through from Jared. You did good. Everyone at the base has your back. I didn't respond right away. I just stared, letting the words wash over me. It wasn't closure, but it was a breach in the silence. In the suburbs, the fallout started. My mother, once the queen bee of the neighborhood, now got cold looks when she walked her garden path. Doors stayed shut. People stopped speaking when she passed. My father, always polished and respected, was quietly excluded from his golf circle. His once busy phone now sat silent, but Bryce got hit the hardest. Through Dina, via a mutual friend, I heard what went down. Bryce showed up at his law firm, shoulders sagging, eyes hollow, trying to explain. He did what he always did, talked. But this time, no one listened. They suspended him, said his conduct damaged their reputation. I didn't feel satisfaction. Not triumph, just emptiness, like something shifting cold inside me. This wasn't revenge, it was something slower, like winter creeping in through cracks. About a month after the article, I left that apartment. It had seen my darkest moments, nights of silent screaming, of dreams that left me gasping, of forgetting who I even was. My new place was closer to downtown, small but full of light. White walls, pale wood floors, a simple table by the window where I kept a cactus Mason once gave me. You need something as tough as you, he'd said with a crooked grin, passing it over in a brown paper bag. His scar deepened as he smiled. This apartment wasn't home. Not yet, but it felt like the beginning of one. I started working nearby at a veteran support center. The pay wasn't much, but it gave me something I hadn't had since I came back. Direction. Every day I met others like me. Men and women who still carried the war inside them. Tom, a Marine who'd lost his leg overseas, joked to cope, but once confessed, sometimes I wake up feeling it's still there. Lisa, who'd served as a medic, avoided eye contact for weeks, but slowly opened up during sessions. Her voice grew lighter each time she spoke. I shared my own story. Never all of it, just enough. Enough to show them they weren't alone. You've been through heck, Hart, Tom said once, squeezing my shoulder. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Every morning I ran through a nearby park. Cool air filled my lungs. My breath fogged in the early light. I always stopped at a bench where the sun filtered through the trees like gold smoke. And when I saw that light, I thought of one thing. The oak tree in Texas? The one where I'd asked Raina to marry me. I didn't cry over her anymore, but the ache remained. Like a faded scar that didn't reopen but still stung in the chill. The silver ring stayed tucked in my pocket, not as a keepsake, but a lesson. I had loved, I had endured, and I was still standing. But silence wasn't an option for my family. 2 weeks after settling into my new place, my mom left me a voicemail. "Landon, don't do this to us. I love you. Please call me." Her voice cracked, whether from guilt or fear I couldn't tell. But beneath the tremble, I still heard what I'd always heard from her: manipulation. I erased it. No reply. 2 days passed, then my father rang. His voice was tight, commanding, like I was an unruly child he had to discipline. "Landon, stop this. You're tearing this family apart. We need to talk." I let the phone ring. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the screen. Then I pressed lock and dropped it beside me. I didn't need more justifications, more lies, more twisting of the truth. Then came Bryce. He tried hardest. A long text, polished, packed with emotion. "Brother, I never meant for it to end this way. Raina, she picked me. Can't we find a way back?" I laughed, cold. Forgiveness? He stepped into my absence, preyed on Raina's grief, and convinced her I was gone. Now he thought pretty words could glue that back together. I blocked him. No answer. Later, Dina told me things were unraveling. Bryce wasn't just on leave. His law firm was being pushed to fire him. My mom had stopped stepping outside. The woman who once thrived on brunches and small talk now stayed hidden behind blinds. My dad, once proud and loud about our family name, sat quietly, eyes locked on the backyard like waiting for it to fix something. Was I happy? No, just still. The reckoning had arrived, not as fire but as frost, slow, quiet, spreading. 2 months later, a message from Dina lit up my phone. "Raina wants to see you. She's not okay. She's in Austin, but she'll come to Dallas if you agree." Her name hit me like a hammer to the ribs. Raina, the woman I'd once imagined forever with. Now Bryce's wife. "What does she want?" I typed back. Fast response. "She needs to talk, wants to tell you the truth. She regrets it all. Bryce didn't love her, he just wanted to beat you." I sat still. Half of me wanted to face her, to finally look her in the eye and hear it all. The other half feared it would rip open everything I'd stitched back together. The next morning, I went for a run. Same park, same bench, dawn breaking over the city. I thought of Mason, of Tom, of the others I helped now. They stared down their pasts. Maybe I could too. I texted Dina. "Tell her to meet me." Saturday, 10 a.m. The park near my place. Saturday arrived cooler than usual. Thin clouds drifted across a clear sky. I stood beneath an old oak, hands in my pockets, light blue shirt clinging faintly to my back. The ring was still in my pocket, heavy like memory. Then I saw her. Raina, in a gray coat, hair down and unbrushed. She looked worn, thinner, paler, eyes swollen from sleepless nights. She walked over. "Landon," she said, her voice barely steady. "Thank you for coming." I nodded. Couldn't speak yet. We sat on the bench, a gap between us that felt like miles. She looked down, then back up. "I don't know how to make this right," she said, voice steady but soft. "But you deserve the truth." I said nothing, just looked. "When you left, I waited. I checked the mailbox every day." Her hands trembled in her lap. "Your mom, she told me you didn't want me anymore, that you picked the army instead." She met my eyes. "She took the letters, Landon. I saw her grab one, said it was a bill." Her voice cracked. "I wanted to believe in you, but I was alone." It stung, words I'd both needed and dreaded to hear. She kept talking, eyes lowered. "Bryce kept showing up. Brought coffee, meals. He told me you weren't coming back, that the army was your choice, not me. And I was so tired, Landon. I thought you'd left me behind." Tears streamed down her face. When he asked me to marry him, I said yes. Not because I loved him, but because I had nothing left. But I was wrong. "I never stopped loving you," she cried, burying her face in her hand. I sat frozen. I wanted to reach across the space, crush her sorrow in my arms, but I didn't move. My hands stayed clenched inside my coat. "Do you understand what those letters meant?" I finally asked, voice rough. She looked up, eyes glossy. "I wrote you every night," I said. "Intense, under fire, when the world was chaos. I wrote. It was how I stayed whole." She nodded, crying harder. "I read the article. I know what your mom did. I'm sorry. I should have fought for you. But I was broken, too." Then silence. I couldn't help it. I reached for her hand. It was cold, fragile, shaking like a wounded bird. If you hate me, I understand, she whispered. I needed you to know. I studied her face, tired, aged by sorrow, but still Raina, still the girl I once dreamed of. I don't hate you, I said. But forgiveness. I'm not there yet. She nodded and stood, brushing her coat. I get it, she whispered. I just want you to be okay. That's all. Then she walked away, slipping under the oak trees, her footsteps fading behind her like a last page turning. 6 months after that, I left Dallas. Not to escape, but to begin again. San Antonio was quieter. Tree-lined streets, terracotta rooftops glowing in the sun, and the river curling through town like a whispered lullaby. I settled in Alamo Heights. My apartment was small, bright, peaceful. From the balcony, I heard birds every morning. The place smelled of paint and pine. I filled a shelf with books, memoirs, psychology, stories from other vets. They reminded me pain wasn't just mine. It spoke many languages. The cactus by my window never quit, sharp-edged, unmoving, stubbornly alive. Mason had once looked at it, then at me, and said, "You need something that hangs on like you do." That weathered smile of his folding into creases earned by time. That line stayed with me, followed me into the modest brick building of the San Antonio Veteran Support Center, nestled near a cluster of wildflowers. It became where I found my footing again. I wasn't just a combat-worn veteran anymore. I was someone who could sit with others and truly hear them. I listened to people like Javier, a former Special Forces soldier haunted by echoes of battle that jolted him from sleep, or Maria, an ex-pilot whose smile cracked whenever she mentioned the friend she lost in a crash. Across from them, at a weathered old table, with the sunlight filtering through the blinds in golden stripes, I became something else. I didn't tell them much about my own past, just enough to build a safe silence. That quiet between us held meaning. Day by day in those rooms, something clicked inside me. There was a time I believed I'd lost it all, I told Javier after another sleepless night left his eyes dull and empty. He braced himself, expecting some cliché or pity, but I didn't give him that. I gave him honesty. Even if everything falls apart, you can start again, one brick at a time. He didn't answer, just gave me a small nod. That gesture, simple as it was, meant everything. In the afternoons, I ran group sessions on managing trauma. Veterans came together in a room awash with afternoon light. Their faces carried stories of struggle, lines drawn by pain and survival. I walked them through breathwork, writing exercises, ways to stay grounded. We sat in quiet circles with invisible weight in the air, stories begging to be spoken. "We can't undo what's behind us," I said one day, marker in hand before the whiteboard. "But we get to decide how much it controls our future. You're alive. You're here. That's already a win." My tone was calm, steady, but inside I was speaking to myself too. Every time someone left those sessions a little more upright, with a clearer voice, I felt something mend in me, not instantly, but slowly, with each step. Mornings began with a jog along the San Antonio River. The path curved past stone bridges and sleepy cafes where the air smelled like warm tortillas and seasoned meat. The river reflected back a sky untouched by sorrow. I always paused at one bend, the bench that faced the light just right as the sun rose. I'd rest there, catch my breath, and reach into my pocket. The silver ring was still there. It didn't feel like a weight anymore. It was part of my story, but not a chain. I'd think of Raina sometimes, or my family. But those memories had softened, like beach glass rubbed smooth over time. I'd learned to release, not forget, but stop carrying it like a burden. One night, after stepping through my door and kicking off my shoes, I felt my phone buzz, a text from Dina. "Landon, Raina wrote you a letter. She asked me to send it your way. Should I?" Her name made my chest tighten. Raina. I hadn't heard from her since that morning in the park, when her tears spilled out like truth. I stared at the message, motionless, before typing back slowly. "Yeah, please send it. Thank you." 3 days later, after I got home from the center, I saw it waiting for me. A plain envelope, my name in her handwriting. I sat down at my table. The lamp cast a soft circle of light over it. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I picked it up with both hands, hesitated, and then tore it open. Her words unfolded in ink and silence. "Landon, maybe you'll never read this, but I have to write it. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I wouldn't expect it. I just want you to know I'm sorry for not being stronger, for trusting your mom, for letting Bryce manipulate me. I leaned back, letting the words fall on me like rain. I live in Austin now, but it doesn't feel like life. Bryce doesn't care about me. He only wanted to outdo you. I'm trying to build something again, one step at a time, like you once did. My throat tightened. Dina told me you're helping veterans in San Antonio. That makes me proud. You've always been the strongest person I knew. I hope someday you find peace. You helped me find some hope again. I won't write again. I won't interfere. I just want you to live a good life. Raina. I sat there holding the letter. I didn't cry, but the tears hovered close. This wasn't her asking for a second chance. It was her letting go. A farewell, a quiet opening for both of us to move forward. I folded the page gently, got up, and reached for the wooden box on my shelf. Inside were a photo of Tommy, my old badge, and a few small, dirt-streaked items from another chapter. I added Raina's letter, then closed the lid, not out of anger, but because I understood we both needed time and space to heal apart.